These need to get tossed. I'm going to measure some of this out. Where's my measuring? Okay. Hello. I'm making dinner. I'm having some hummus, which I have measured out. How's your day been? What have you been up to? I went to the gym early today, so I was able to get a nap in, and I went to yoga tonight. Which is not that weird. I do yoga like 3 times a week, so. But, I was going to try and edit my book today, and I just didn't get around to it. I did briefly think about doing NaNoWriMo this month, and I was like, I just cannot do it. I just don't have time for it. It's too much. Gonna pass on the NaNoWriMo. But I'm gonna try to get some reading done this month. If I can fit it in. My friend told me he was gonna take one of my poems and try to teach it to his class, and I was like, my heart felt so full. It took me forever to journal today. I was trying to journal and I kept getting distracted. I think I fell asleep during my meditation today too. Which, that's not uncommon. But I've been really tired today. I think it has to do with, the time change and stuff. Oh my god, so I have these blueberries. Let me show you these blueberries. They're huge. I was like, I've been wanting to savor them. But also at the same time, they're beautiful. I have some blueberries too. Save the rest of them for tomorrow. Whoever did my grocery order this week was they took care of me. They got me some. If you want to see the video where I did the grocery haul, check out my channel, because I did a grocery haul and the blueberries were in the grocery haul. But look at these blueberries. They're jumbo. I used to see blueberries like this when I lived in Death Valley. It was the norm. And I was like, oh, are they norm? Is that norm? I thought that was the norm until I left Death Valley and I was like, no, that's not the norm. Blueberries are not usually that huge. And the West Coast is pretty normal to get blueberries that big. The blueberries are usually half the size. But I love the way they pop. They burst in your mouth. I was thinking about it and I was like, where have I heard popping berries? And it's the beginning of Hunger Games. They get berries in the forest and Katniss is playing with her friend and they're eating berries and she's talking about the bursting flavor of the berries. And I was eating the berries and I was eating blueberries today and I was thinking about the beginning of Hunger Games when she is playing with her friend. But the way that she describes food in Hunger Games is very interesting. And I always try to pay attention to her descriptions of food because she doesn't have a whole lot in the book. So I just thought that was very interesting, the way that she, is excited about food and the way that she gets on about food, And the juxtaposition of later on towards the end of the first novel into the second novel when she goes to the Capitol and there's all of this when she is at these parties and there's the gluttonous Capitol people having their parties and they're eating to excess to the point of where they have to go relieve themselves, vomit. And so they're just the way that she describes, Suzanne Collins describes those parties and the ostentatiousness of those parties is very interesting. The first book specifically was pretty good. The second two weren't as good in their descriptions, but the first one was pretty good in its description of those things. But yeah, so I was thinking about that. Don't you ever think about books when they're like you? What do books ever like you ever get like reminded about books sometimes? Like when you think about things. I don't know. I've read so many books these days. I've been reading my whole life, so I just get reminded of books every so often. And like, I probably read over like 1,000 books at this point in my life, at least 1,000. So I'm reminded of books quite often. It'll be like a random. Sometimes it'll be random books. I'll be like, that book sounds so familiar. Or I'll think like a book I read like 20 years ago. I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this book. Like there was one that I was thinking of called. It was a. I just looked it up, but it was called. Uh, it was about how society like thinner than thou is what it was called, thinner than thou. And I was thinking about that recently about how they marvel about thinness, but they also secretly marvel about like fat people, and like they are secret feeders. And it's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest book. And I was thinking about like Amberlynn Reid and like how she got involved with the feeder, and it was this like it made me think of that book Thinner Than Thou, because it's like this weird twisted society that gets involved with these things, and it just reminded me of that book for some reason. So, I read it. It's very simplistic, and it kind of has a weird mixed message. But I remember reading that book as a kid, and thinking that it was really deep, but it's very interesting. So I don't know. I read it and I was like, it's a young adult novel, so I don't know. It's not exactly like the most elegant in its approach, but is a very interesting book. Anyway, I just jumped on for a quick live to fulfill my duty. Duty. So I'm going to jump off live. My cat's looking at me. Do you want to see a cat? Larry. There's your weekly cat, your daily cat. Hello, Larry. Oh, hello, 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 hello. Okay, there's your daily cat. So I'm going to jump off live and go eat my dinner. But I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I will talk to you again soon.